Hello from everyone at TSNN and welcome. Today we are super lucky to have a stellar lineup of speakers. They will help us gain an education on the importance of leveraging content marketing for the purpose of growing our shows and events. Tracy Brown will help guide us towards learning fresh new ideas, so thanks for tuning in. It's so important to thank our sponsors, MCCA, Advantage Boston, and OnStream Media. They continue to help us deliver these educational topics to you free of charge. All TSNN webinars are brought to you by OnStream Media, the leader in multimedia webinar and webcasting services. OnStream Media is a leading online service provider of corporate audio and web communications, including webinar and webcasting services. OnStream Media's innovative webinar platform, Visual Webcaster 4.0, allows event managers to easily produce, schedule, and invite attendees to highly interactive, live, and on-demand webinars that can be accessed via desktop or a mobile device. No downloads are ever required, and the solution can scale to support tens of thousands of attendees. The platform has been ranked number 1 by top 10 reviews and is being used to power today's event. To learn more about OnStream's products, please visit onstreammedia.com. Another round of thanks goes out to Advantage Boston and the Massachusetts Convention Center Authority. They own and operate the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center and the Heinz Convention Center. I'm from the Boston area, and I can testify firsthand that they represent all of the unique benefits and advantages of bringing an event here, including state-of-the-art facilities, first-class hotels, unique history, culture, and top-notch services, including free Wi-Fi throughout the BCEC and the Heinz. Now allow me to introduce our moderator today. Tracy Brown, owner and founder of the Trade Show Institute, describes herself as a conference and trade show geek. She also has a strong passion for marketing and ROI. Put those two together and you end up with someone who won't settle for the status quo when it comes to meetings, conferences, and trade shows. She claims that unless the producer, the sponsors, and the attendees are getting the maximum value from an event, it's just not good enough. She has owned and produced conferences and expos. She's a freelance content marketer and consults to exhibitors and show organizers to create events people want to attend. She's also a very popular blogger on TSNN. We can't wait to get started. Tracy, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Arlene. Now I get to introduce our stellar panel for today. We have with us today Chris Dolnak. He's Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer for the National Shooting Sports Foundation, the Firearms and Ammunition Industries Trade Association. Chris leads marketing and sales operations, branding, marketing communications, emerging media, industry research, and the industry's largest trade show, the Shooting, Hunting, and Outdoor Trade, or SHOT Show, which is the 17th largest trade show in North America. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much, Tracy, and good afternoon, everybody.
We also have with us today Joe Polizzi. Joe is the founder of Content Marketing Institute, the leading education and training organization for content marketing, which includes the largest in-person content marketing event in the world, Content Marketing World. Joe's third book, Epic Content Marketing, How to Tell a Different Story, Break Through the Clutter, and Win More Customers by Marketing Less, was named one of 5 must-read business books of 2013 by Fortune magazine. Welcome, Joe.
Tracy, it's wonderful to be on. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. And we also have Monica Haley here as well. Monica is the Marketing Communications Manager at Association for Manufacturing Technology. Monica joined AMT in 2006 as an industry analyst for the Strategic Information and Research Department. After attending IMTS in 2006, she was asked to transfer her skills as a research librarian to marketing for exhibitions. Bringing a new perspective on viral marketing through the use of blogs and electronic tools, Monica works with the entire exhibitions and communications team at AMT to complete an entire marketing package for IMTS. IMTS ranked number 2 on the TSNN Top 250 Trade Show list in 2012. Welcome, Monica.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, let me tell you a little bit about today's format. This is gonna be done in kind of like a fireside chat. The four of us are gonna have a conversation around some of the questions that most show organizers have about content marketing. We'll leave the final 10 or so minutes to address any questions you may have. If we don't get to your question, don't worry. We'll be in touch with the answer after the webinar. I also want to point out the hashtag, which will be at the bottom of every slide. That's TSNN webinar for those who want to chat along on Twitter. You'll also see the Twitter handles there for each of our panelists. So to get us started, I'd like to have Joe give us his definition of content marketing and how that applies to trade shows, expos, and conventions. Go for it, Joe.
All right, no pressure there, Tracy. No, we'll give her a start. So content marketing, really, if you think about the general definition, then I'll make it specific for the event industry. It's the strategy and process of creating and distributing valuable, compelling, and relevant content on a consistent basis to achieve some profitable customer action, right? We're trying to change behavior or maintain behavior in some way. So if you look at that definition as it relates to events, what we're trying to do is create consistent touch points with our customers or our delegates on an ongoing basis to really become the 24/7 resource for them. And there's really three objectives when you're looking to do anything content marketing related. We're trying to get, one, more people to the event. Two, we're trying to get people to return to the event at higher rates. And then the third one is we're trying to get delegates to spend more. So if you're looking at doing any kind of a content marketing initiative, I think those are your three main goals that you're looking at. Those are your high-level metrics, and then we can, of course, talk more in the webinar about lower-level metrics, but that's kind of how I would solidify what we're trying to do with content marketing.
Okay, great. Now, I've got my questions for all of you. So, Chris, we'll start with you. How is your event providing valuable, compelling content throughout the year?
Well, everything that we do is cross-platform. So we're pumping things out on, whether it's a 140-character headline on Twitter, a 150-word post on Facebook, a 250-word blog, webinars. We use a lot of video on YouTube. So we really do it across platform because our customers like to digest their information in different forms, and our customers are everywhere, so we have to be everywhere too.
And do you do? I know, I read a lot of your stuff when you're tweeting out. You're not just pushing out your own information; you're also talking about your sponsors and exhibitors and industry news.
Well, I think it's important to give a 360 perspective, so that you're not only giving your say sponsors recognition or key product announcements, but it also helps to inform attendees as well as other exhibitors. So the more channels you can use and really make it a 360 experience.
And Monica, you have kind of a different situation because you're reaching out and keeping in contact. You have 2 years between your events. So what are you guys doing?
It does present a challenge of staying relevant for these huge gaps of time. And when in reality or in traditional marketing sense, you're only talking about 6 days. But those 6 days are so important. And the content in which that we normally talk to people would not just be narrowed to those 6 days. So we're trying to be a resource throughout the years in between that people can come to us with problems, with questions, where they're looking for information. So we actually push content that is industry relevant, just science relevant, anything that falls under the STEM kind of information, science, technology, engineering, and math, because that's stuff that our attendees, our exhibitors would be interested throughout the year. So if they're looking to us for just information, things they'd find in the news, things they'd find interesting on the internet through any resource, we want to be that resource for them.
Gotcha. And Joe, I've been to content marketing world, so as an attendee, I kind of know what you're doing all year long, but I'd like to hear you talk about it.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, the one thing we've learned, and actually I just got some data yesterday that I can share with everyone. So we just had our Sydney event, Content Marketing World Sydney. And what we realized is that the average person that attends our event in Sydney averages at least 3 regular touch points that we provide. And most of them have more than that, actually. So if you think about they're already subscribed to our magazine, they already subscribe to our blog posts, they engage in our e-newsletter, they download our research, they attend our 20%, 25%, listen to our podcasts. So we know, and this is just from data we've gathered over the past few years, that the more touch points that we can get them hooked into, kind of like if you were an octopus, we want to get more of those legs wrapped around our delegates in some way, the more opportunity that we'll have to get them to the event. So everything else that we do, we look at it, we're not an event company, we are a media platform in a lot of cases. We position it as training and education, but really we think about it not as an event company, but this media platform, and everything else that we do needs to help people get to the event. Well, that means that we've got to keep that in mind when we deliver a quarterly magazine. Well, actually, every 2 months we send out a magazine issue, or we do a piece of content every day. We do a daily e-newsletter every day, do a weekly e-newsletter. And, like we were just talking about, some people like to get them daily, some people like to get them weekly, some people like to get them every other month. So that's one part. The second part is we've really got to figure out who our buyers are. We have 6 different types of titles and functions that come to Content Marketing World, but we've decided, just because it makes the most sense for getting the right people to the event, we only have content marketing strategies to 2 of those titles. Really, it's the doers and the executives. We have different content that goes to those people. So, I guess the insight that I take out of all this is that the more that we can get them wrapped into other pieces of consistent content through the year, we're more likely to get them to the event. And I don't know if a lot of events that we work with think of it that way.
Yeah, a lot of what I see out there is with a lot of shows, unlike the 2 that we have on here today, but they're thinking of content marketing as just another advertising platform.
I would agree. Yeah, I would. I mean, it's almost always about here's the speakers, and there's a time and a place for that, right? You've got to let them know what you have to offer. But 95 to 99% of the communication you send out that is marketing actually has no sales or marketing information in it. It's to keep building that relationship throughout the year.
Absolutely. So speaking of all this compelling content, Monica, what are you guys planning on trying over the next couple years?
So we've noticed...
You have your show coming right up, so I guess that's all you're thinking about right now. But
actually, we have started to make a few changes because we do have, since we're associated with a trade association, I have events that I'm responsible for marketing annually. And frequently. So they're like tiny little test projects that we get to do for this larger event. And I found that we all know that the word of mouth is so powerful, and if I have 2 business relationships that these 2 guys speak regularly and they're trustworthy amongst one another, that's more valuable than anything I'm going to say in any social media platform or any printed piece I send them. So as a result, I need to take advantage of that relationship. And we normally do at this larger trade show, which we provide, materials that this guy or this salesman or this rep can mail or hand to his own business contacts. What we haven't provided and what we are planning to provide as a result are basically social media evangelist kits. These evangelist kits are something that we've developed over the past couple of years of just pieces of information, little digital widgets, pieces of art, pieces of text, suggestions of how to schedule some social media content and emails coming from business contacts, not necessarily us in our roles as marketers, but maybe somebody in the business development department or a member or a committee member or a past attendee that really wants to, be our marketer because they're so fervently proactive about being an INTS attendee or INTS participant. And so we're developing basically this evangelist kit for our evangelists to go out there and have materials to do our marketing for us.
And how did you identify those people?
They usually identify themselves quite easily. We are terrible about doing our own particular follow-ups with regard to Matrix, but we do surveys in-house with our economists. And through those surveys, it's people that provide specific information, they identify themselves. And just having as many companies associated with us, our exhibitors themselves are evangelists. It's in their best interest to get their best customers to the show. So automatically, they are people that would be recipients of these pieces of information, and I honestly am willing to give them to anybody that's willing to take them. I have no affinity towards keeping them for myself. The whole point is to give everybody that wants to talk about the show every piece I can about the show. So it involves everything from scheduling suggestions and how to set up particular parts of when to release certain information on social media, and basic and simplistic scripts for when they're like, they don't know where to start the conversation, they don't know where to fit it into a conversation that they're having at a business meeting or anything like that. We can help them do that, and we're totally willing to.
That's great. And Chris, I know that when we talked, you had something interesting that you were going to try out this year.
Yeah, Tracy, we're going to try to incorporate not only more video into our show site that we can put up on a daily basis, but we're also going to try to implement some podcasts this year because there's 43 million blogs out there, and there are something like 266,000 podcasts, so a lot smaller universe. And talking to people, I guess I was sort of surprised at how many folks download business-related podcasts and listen to them on their commute. So we're going to try to develop some podcasts, particularly for our exhibitors, and particularly for first-time or relatively new exhibitors. Just something that we can feed up on over a period of time to remind them things that they need to do, deadlines, to make suggestions to them, have some interviews with other industry experts and exhibitor experts, to try to help educate them, keep them on track so they get the most out of the show, and hopefully develop a little excitement.
That's great. And I like what I'm hearing is like this idea of trying things. Like it's okay to experiment.
Well, I think that if you're not getting better, if you're not adding more value, then you're losing ground. And again, people like to digest information in different ways. I mean, we've got a YouTube channel for SHOT Show that has about 1,600 subscribers, which is parallel with our number of exhibitors. But we've got videos on there that have had over 20,000 views.
Wow.
So, with 70,000 attendees, and a lot of interest too by our end user customers, the consumer, there's a lot of information you can impart, not only to your exhibitors and your attendees, but also to the end users, and that in turn provides more value to your exhibitors.
Great. And Joe, what about you guys? I mean, have you already tried everything that exists, or are you trying some new things too?
No. I mean, I love listening to this stuff. I mean, the first thing is just from what Chris said, big opportunity in podcasts. I was a non-believer until we launched our podcast, and it is amazing. And Chris is absolutely right. There's more people that want to consume podcasts than there is content available. I think that's maybe the only medium out there that's a possible thing. And what we're going to see here pretty shortly, as Chris was talking, we're going to have Apple CarPlay in almost every car here in the next few years, if not already available. So you're going to have every car out there easily being able to download a podcast. I think it's huge. In April, we just launched, we're on our 22nd episode. We do it every week. And we had 17,000 downloads in the last month. And a ton of those people came to Content Marketing World Sydney because of that podcast. So I'm like, well, that's fantastic. So we're looking at more podcasts. We're also digging deep into the affiliate model again, where, as Monica was saying about social media influencers, where we're trying to get our social media influencers signed up to promote the event and compensate them. So that's the second thing. We launched online training. So we believe that if we can train them all year long and they can be a member of our online training program, which is actually paid, that they're more likely to come to the event. We don't know that they're more likely to come to the event yet, but we're trying that out. And then the last thing is we launched an executive event, which will be in San Francisco in May. And the reason for that is the executive, their teams are the ones that come to Content Marketing World, not the executives. We get most of the doers that are doing content marketing. So we believe if we can attract the executives, the chief marketing officers and such with a small event, we can get them to then want to send their teams to our event. So I'll let you know how that goes as well.
Great. So next question here. Because as you guys were talking about podcasts, the first thing that flashed through my mind was something new to learn, something to figure out. So resources are always an issue in our industry, and I'm wondering what advice you can give other show organizers who want to get started with this content marketing thing. How do they convince, if they're the only ones that think it's a good idea, how do they convince their board or key stakeholders that it's worth investing in? I'm not sure, Chris, you are the person that has to be convinced. So how would you suggest people go about it?
Well, Tracy, I think there's certainly plenty of success stories out there that you can point to. Other shows and other events that are doing great jobs with their content marketing, and I think the first key is to develop a content plan, and to build from there, because I have a board I have to answer to as well. We have a SHOT Show committee of that board. So when we're looking to invest time and resources into content marketing, whether it was building our video studio a couple of years ago, or investing in some additional audio equipment so that we can do podcasts, I think it's important to have a plan, not just we want to do some podcasts, or we want to do some blogs, or set up some social media networks. I think you have to have a plan that is very specific. It demonstrates clearly the deliverables by month, by week, and who the key audiences are that are going to be served. Whether you're educating exhibitors, supporting sponsors, building enthusiasm amongst your attendees, so that all your key audiences are covered, and to also have a plan on demonstrating what the return on engagement is. How many people, how many views you have, how many click-throughs, what kind of feedback you get, in your comment sections, how many views on your videos, how many downloads on your podcast, etc. I think if you can demonstrate, not only the strategy, but the execution and how you're going to measure it, I think most executives and most boards will give you the opportunity to try it. Great.
Monica, how about you? How did you convince your stakeholders to do that?
My vice president has been the voice of all of this. He was the one that got me into this department and wanted to start some aspect of social media years ago, but now we figured out how, not just social media, but any type of new medium, we start small with a plan, just as Chris had said, of you don't need to be everywhere. You need to be where your audience is already. These atmospheres and these like almost terrariums of people are already existing, and you just need to be in the conversations that are already happening and participating in the community that already exists. So we've, in our surveys and in our registrations of events, we do ask people where they are, where they're spending their time in social media, where they're spending their time online. And that way we can focus our efforts into those mediums that already exist, rather than trying to get them to sign up for something else or be someplace that they aren't already, because their time's valuable and they only have a limited amount of it. So we want to engage them where they're existing in the first place.
Great. And Joe, do you hear from people that they struggle convincing their boards to do this, or do you have any tips for them?
Yeah, it's not as much of a problem as it used to be, but it's still a problem. I think the bigger issue, and Monica and Chris both mentioned this, most of the events that we work with are just trying stuff, and nothing wrong with trying stuff, but they don't have a plan behind it. Oh, let's do a blog. Let's do some webinars. Let's do an e-newsletter. Well, why are we doing that? Are we doing it to grow sales? Are we doing it for our cost savings replacement? Are we doing it to create happier attendees, delegates, subscribers in some way? So that's the first part. The second part is I love the pilot program. It works almost every time, because if you go to a C-suite decision maker and you say, hey, we want to try this. Here's why we're doing it. Here's the hypothesis. And we want to try this pilot program that's going to last 6 months, and then at 6 months we're going to come back to you, and here's the metrics we're hoping to get. Will you approve this based on this pilot? And I've rarely seen anybody ever turned down by that. So I think if you just focus in on that, they're a little bit less like, oh, it's just a pilot. It's not that much risk. So it's just because if you position, if you say, we're going to start a blog, and we're going to blog every day, and we need these resources, they're going to like, whoa, that's a lot. That seems like a lot, and what's the opportunity cost of that? So just make it simple. You want to hit a single and not a home run, and build that up and move around the bases that way.
And maybe they'll forget that it was a pilot, and you just keep moving.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we work with a lot of I'm in Monica's industry a lot. We work with a lot of manufacturing companies, and this is a new thing for them. They're not used to doing it. So, I mean, we're set up very siloed, very traditionally around traditional marketing and advertising opportunities. So if you go in with, oh, we're not going to do this anymore, and we're going to do this, you're like, whoa, because the biggest challenge is change. It's not anything else we're talking about. It's that it's different. So you have to make it as low pain threshold as possible, and the pilot works really well.
Great. Okay, so we have an advantage in our industry because events generate tons of content, and we can use that throughout the year. Monica, where else do you tap into to supplement your content outside of anything that you have going on at the event, or who do you tap into?
Definitely our industry publications. They're farming content on a daily basis for themselves and for the audience that we attract to the event. They're the exact people that we go to when we're doing media plans and media buys, promoting our event. Why wouldn't we be talking to them, I guess, throughout the year? Because they have the exact same concerns. So they're constantly producing new material, digital and print, and they're our first go-to. That said, we all get distracted, and we don't want to constantly read about one particular thing that we may be working on at work. You need that keep your brain balanced little distraction, and that's why cat videos are popular. So as a result, we go to some peripheral magazines as well, something like Popular Mechanics, that would be a probable hobby magazine of our same attendees. So between all of that, we're able to provide a more well-rounded picture of an individual. Just as much as an individual wants to be an entity on social media, our event needs that personality throughout the year, and that's how we kind of balance it.
That's interesting. I like that Popular Mechanics to expand more on, what your attendees are interested in other than just their job.
Yeah, because our traditional attendee is very identifiable. I just imagine him, a guy going home on Saturday or Sunday and probably has stuff tinkering around in the garage that in his head might not, be a CNC machine or a lathe or grinding or anything like that, but it's not a huge leap by any means that is an additional interest of his.
Great. How about you, Chris?
Oh, there's so many resources. Our exhibitors, are a great resource. We ask them in our exhibitor resource center if they're going to have any celebrity appearances, so they can fill it out online, submit it to us, and then we'll help publicize that because it helps generate excitement with attendees. And we look for newsmakers, from within the industry, whether it's at a company, an exhibiting company, whether it's with industry publications, as Monica mentioned, association executives, members of our board, any celebrities in attendance. We also use a very selected number of guest bloggers. Typically outside the industry, the firearms and ammunition industry, but certainly within the trade show industry. In fact, our most popular guest blog has been yours, Tracy, with on how to use social media to promote your participation as an exhibitor. And
that's good to hear.
We've done that the last 2 years, and people who respond, we give away copies of the book, and it's a great way to engage your customers as well as to educate them. But you got to be careful on the guest blog angle, because there's no shortage of people that'll come in over the transom that want to write a guest blog for you, and it does a great job of promoting their product or their service, but it doesn't do a whole heck of a lot for your customers, whether it's your exhibitors or your attendees or your sponsors. So if it's not adding value, it doesn't belong in your content plan.
Write that down. Joe, how about you? I mean, especially on the guest blogger front, I bet you get a lot of requests.
Well, we have a little bit of different model, because almost the pure majority of content that we have are from contributors and guest bloggers in some way. So let's say this year we'll have well over 200 contributors in different ways, shapes, or forms that are going to give us content for the blog. And just to talk about what Chris was just saying, really important that we send them the blog guidelines right away, so that they know what it is. And we tell them there's a good chance they won't be accepted, because we've got an editorial process, and it's got to be significantly useful, and it cannot have a sales pitch. We give them one link, but there's no sales pitch at all in the content. And then that goes to our managing editor, which then goes to a proofreader, then it goes to a titler. So we have just one person that just works on search engine optimized titles, and that's worked out really well for us to target our different keywords. But outside of that, we really have what we call a social media hit list. So what we keep track of is, where are our possible attendees on the web at any one time if they're not on our site? And we consistently have a list around that, and those could be other bloggers, associations, trade magazines like Monica was talking about. We keep those, and we look and see what projects can we do individually with each one of those. And if we can't do a project, then we try to get them in as a guest blogger or a guest contributor in some way. So, that's all of our marketing. We don't pay for a lot of our marketing. It's almost all just hard work on getting those people who are already influencers to create content, and then them to share that content out on the web, and that's how we get new people finding out about what we do.
We already touched on Joe, you brought up, and Monica and Chris, you've also talked about the importance of having a plan. Can you talk just a little bit about what your plan looks like? What does it include? Not in detail what it includes, but kind of a summary of what you're showing on there. Monica, do you want to start?
Sure. Our plan is definitely staged based on time of year, and hovers around what key information do we have to start talking about based on what's going on with the show? And then we backpedal from there. If the show is approaching and there's certain things that we need action items associated with, those will take priority, and then that'll start to fill up our content naturally. Beyond that, the show information or information that we can get from other resources will, like Choose Chicago, who's a big partner of ours, because without the city, we definitely wouldn't have nearly as many opportunities for exhibitors and attendees to interact. We'll incorporate their content and incorporate their planning in with some items that we do on show site and prior to show site for things that involve planning. When it is like super downtime, like the April after a show or something like that, it's very, very heavy, just, pull content from other aspects, other places, like the trade magazines and social magazines. So it is based and started with what is the priority for our overall messaging. It doesn't deviate from how marketing works traditionally. It just is put in a different medium, which is digital in this case, and incredibly malleable.
Great. Chris, what about you? Chris might be on mute.
You're correct. I was.
There you go.
Technologically challenged.
How do we know?
But we work in a very similar way. We work back from the show date. So our plan, 1 week out, 2 weeks out, etc., all the way to 51 weeks out. And then I guess it would look more like a calendar grid, by topic. There are certain things that we know that we're going to talk about at certain times of the year. For instance, registration opens in mid-August. So, we're going to tease about registration in late July, early August, and then we're going to announce it in August. Then we'll make some reminders, if people are not, make sure that they've registered. Same thing when the housing, when our housing opens up we know when that's going to take place, so we prep that, tease it a little bit, and then, again, launch that. We're a state of the industry tickets. We do the same thing on the exhibitor side. Key deadlines, whether it's with the decorators or, forms that they have to submit, make sure they get their hotels, make sure they're in the housing block, etc. So it's just a matter of, I would say 75 to 80% of our content is somewhat repetitive, but, it's not new to everyone, but it's always going to be new to someone. And everybody has they have a real business to run, and the SHOT Show might only be one part of what somebody does. So I think it's helpful for the customer to remind them, and it also helps to build some excitement. That sort of anticipation of coming to the industry's largest event. It's like the Super Bowl for the industry. So I think the more that we can provide actionable information to them that also helps to create excitement for the event, then to me, that's value.
Great. And Joe, I'd love to see your content marketing plan, because I imagine it's quite impressive, but do you have anything to add to that? Any tips for people?
Well, we look at it a little bit differently because our content and editorial plan never talks about the event. Because what we know, and this is just from stats, we didn't know this 4 years ago, but we know it now. Anytime we talk about us or the event or anything we're doing, we get about 25% of the normal page views, shares, and unique visitors. That's a problem. So we're not getting the type of reach we need to on each particular post. So we have if you just go to our blog, we have one goal. It's to get and keep a subscriber. That's it. We're not hitting them up with the event. We're not talking about all the things we sell. It's just that, hey, this is really valuable content. We'd like to send you this content in a regular way. There's been 80,000 people that have subscribed to this content already, and here's a free content strategy guide for you to sign up. That's all we're doing because we know that once we can get them in as a subscriber, then we can start to market to them. But I don't market to them at all before that matter. So every piece of content we have is something educational, useful. The editorial team meets every week on this, and then we know that if we can keep that very, very useful, they'll be open to hearing about, here's when the event's coming, here's a discounted rate. We do all the same thing every other event does, but in our content itself, we keep out all the sales pitches.
Gotcha. One question that I get a lot from people is around measurement and how do you measure things. So how do you, not everything's a winner. You're not going to knock it out of the park every time. How do you determine what's working and what's not working, and how do you measure your efforts? Joe?
Well, this is kind of back on the other question, but I think it's really important. We didn't know this a few years ago, and probably, let's say it was about 24 months ago, I started seeing the data, and then I fell in love with subscription. Because what I realized is that 80% of the people that attend our event subscribe to something that we have. so that I know as an owner that if I can get them subscribed to some piece of content, that could be a podcast, it could be a weekly webinar series, it could be an e-newsletter, whatever it is, could be a magazine, whatever the subscription is, I've taken the likelihood of them coming to our event off the charts. If they're not subscribed in some way, well, the odds of me getting them to come to the event are slim to none compared to if they were subscribed. So that's how I would sell it. That's how I look at it. We want subscribers in some way, and I love the email subscription. That's my favorite subscription. But you could even go more generally to know that, okay, we want them subscribed to our Twitter feed or our Facebook page, LinkedIn follower, whatever the case is. But the problem with those is you don't own those connections. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter owns those connections, so they could take those away at any point. Like, there's not much value, obviously, in a Facebook fan anymore because Facebook doesn't show any of that organic content. You got to pay for it now. So LinkedIn and Twitter could do the same thing. So those are the issues that I have there. So we really, really focus on email subscription first.
Got it. Chris, how about you? How do you determine what's working and what's not and measure what you're doing?
I think certainly email subscriptions are one indicator, but you just look overall, the number of views on YouTube, response through comments, response on Facebook, from our 72,000 fans, and just look at what the level of engagement is, or level of response. If we push something out, maybe it's not going to elicit a social media response, but maybe we're going to see it when the number of rooms booked out of our in our block takes a significant jump the following week, or registration for one of our educational events or one of our entertainment venues. So I think there's a number of barometers you can look at. It's not strictly just web analytics per se, but I think you have to look at what registers and what go back to at the beginning of when Joe gave his definition of content marketing and what's going to elicit some change in the behavior that's going to be valuable to people.
Gotcha. How about you, Monica?
It's actually pretty similar to what was just mentioned with regard to seeing response rates. And what we just had a smaller event that was struggling for attendees to register. And as a result of the Evangelist Kit being released and a couple other pushes that were very, very specific and very targeted with message and recipient, they tripled the attendance in a matter of 2 days, I believe. So that means an enormous amount, obviously, to the people counting pennies upstairs. That said, we also do have metrics through our scheduling system that the board and our show committee love to know about, and that measures for Twitter and Facebook and everything from demographics to the content that they are paying more and more attention to. And we use Sprout Social, which is a paid scheduling site, but in the grand scheme of things, it's quite cheap and has been incredibly valuable as a scheduler and as a matrix reporter. So that's been valuable in where and how we're spending time and how we're crafting our message.
Great. What about, Chris, you got those podcasts that you're going to try this year. Have you thought about how you're going to determine if they're successful, if it's just based on listeners, or are there other things?
Well, it's not only the number of subscribers or downloads, but then if you're advising, say, your exhibitors to take certain actions, whether it's with the show decorator or with the housing, again, to watch that and see what kind of response you get to that. So I think some of them are hard engagement analytics, and I think others are more behavioral.
Gotcha.
So I think that that's what we're that's what we're going to look at. I mean, we want to make them smarter and better educated about getting the most out of their SHOT Show experience. But we also want it to be profitable for them.
Gotcha.
Hey, Tracy, the other point on that is when you try some of these new activities, you can get them funded. Like we went out and got our podcast funded. So it makes the trying of this thing a lot easier because you're opening up new sponsor opportunities for exhibitors.
Okay, that's what I was just going to ask you. Funding from where? From sponsors?
Yeah, what do you? So we got to look at what you sell. What's your media kit have? You're selling to cocktail receptions? You're selling to booths? What are all you selling? Well, you also have audience. So are you selling your e-newsletter sponsorships? Are you selling placements on your blog? Are you selling, because we have limited inventory, we set it up as limited inventory on our blog so that we would have those spots be more valuable. Are you selling sponsorships to your webinars like this one? I mean, whatever the case is. So all of what's great about, I think a lot of people do this, so I don't know how new this is, but all of our marketing initiatives are funded and usually profitable in and of themselves. So they're really easy to be marketing opportunities because, like, if we're going to do an ebook and promote Content Marketing World as part of that ebook, we most likely will have a sponsor as well, and they get to promote that. So we get the additional promotion of it, but we also get the funding to cover all the costs.
Yeah, that's a good point because the content, because it's valuable, people are more willing to sponsor it, as opposed to you don't get a lot of people sponsoring your postcard.
Correct.
But
we do. Yeah. So I'll give you an example. We do tons of research every year that gets us tons of promotion, tons of media exposure. It's fantastic. That's all sponsored too, because when we don't talk about the event at all, we just talk about the research. But the side benefit is everybody's talking about Content Marketing Institute and what we do, and we get the placement, and we get coverage of it, and it's great. And at the same time, it's a revenue generator. So those types of pilot programs are super easy for anyone to say yes to because we pre-sell. So go to your really good exhibitors that you have a really good relationship with, and you can run some of these ideas by them, and then plus you get co-marketing with them because they'll market it to their own list.
Right. Cool. Well, we have some questions from the audience now. So you guys are going to this is the improv portion. We have a question here from Trace. It says, in some industries, there is very little media to cover all the show news. Do you think that the show itself can become a publisher of news for their industry based on their members and exhibitors? Anybody want to take that? It's not directed to anybody in particular.
I can start it.
Okay.
Definitely. As we do not have enough people, let alone outlets, for the show in many regards. As a result, we partner in many times with industry publications, and they're using us as much as we're using them for content. So we end up self-publishing, though it is through an industry outlet like Gardner, who does a significant amount of manufacturing trade magazines, and some others, GIE Media and whatnot, that publish a plethora of information from software to hard manufacturing to innovative new technology in the industry. So, and we encourage our exhibitors to partner with them, and we encourage our members to engage with them, because there is absolutely no way that they can do it without us or we can do it without them.
Got it. Anyone else have anything to add to that, or I'll move on to the next? Okay.
I think you can absolutely become a publisher, whether it's putting videos on your website, and whether it's interviews with your exhibitors, and you can get those sponsored by those exhibitors. They can talk about their new product launch. You can talk about why they should be there. You publish your daily blog. I think that there's a number of opportunities, whether it's digital, video. Show dailies. You can take the content that's going to be published in your show dailies, and some of it is written far in advance, and then schedule that as content so that it reinforces it, so that your messaging is consistent. And again, you're just delivering it across platforms.
Yeah, Tracy, I would just say that the way that I would think about it is there is some risk to it if you are relying on other people's channels, if you're an event and you don't have your own audiences built in. Of course you want to partner with other entities and look for co-marketing opportunities and work with publishers and other associations. That's great, but your exhibitors and the trade magazines in your industry and the associations are all trying to take your spot. They won't necessarily say it, but they're thinking about it, and they're trying to be the go-to resource for the people that you attract. So you can either let them have it and kind of relinquish that role, or you can go at it and say, no, we need to be that resource, and we need to go that extra mile. And even I grew up in publishing and the trade side, so I know the whole thing about event. I know exactly what Monica's role is, and great news is Monica's got an awesome event that everybody wants to go to. But I can also say at the same time that those publishers would love to have that event. They'd love to do that, and they're trying to figure out a way to do it. But Monica's shielding that. So I think that what Monica's doing is great is because she's building out her own channels at the same time so that she's not under the gun from those people that she always has to go out and get promotion and partnership.
Exactly. And I think part of it is that we're in a unique position purely based on size that is not common for everyone, but parts of it can be applied to everyone, as in because we're partnering with people and just not letting them have at it, we still have final say, luckily. We do get to see stuff before it comes in, things like that. So that's really critical in the relationship that we have with these other people that we're working with in content creation.
Got it. Monica, we have a question here specifically for you from Heather asking what is included in that evangelist kit. If you have more details on that.
It's as broad or as narrow as we actually have information for. Because we're just creating it for the show itself, I can exemplify a smaller event that we do where the items that are included are small widgets that are perfect for signature blocks that can be pushed out through social media, that can be put on the bottom of emails of a show or a committee member for a committee that's hosting a very large event. It's in his interest to put that on his email, and he'll do it because it's very little effort, or whoever's working for him that knows how to work Outlook will do it. There's a variety of just banner type of advertisements that you wouldn't necessarily think of pushing as an individual, but now it's very feasible and very possible through all these outlets. The next thing is definitely a fact sheet and basically a script associated with that that allows somebody that's having a conversation with a business partner about something possibly related can continue the conversation into the branch of whatever this event is coming up as, when it's happening, where it's going to be, what the main topics are, any key speakers. And those guys aren't going to be like scrolling through their smartphone or anything else, I'm assuming, when they're having that conversation, but maybe they've read it beforehand, or maybe it's open on an email if they're having a phone conversation. Anytime I can get them very specific information, very succinct information, I'll take advantage of it. And the next step that we're working on creating for the larger events is a more definitive social media timeline for people that have absolutely no resources to devote towards social media. Our smaller booths definitively do not have that time or the resources to do it, but through just a basic scheduling and an Excel spreadsheet, I can tell them, here's some outlets that you can go to that are free or cheap, here's some suggested content, and it's basically a synthesized or narrowed version of what would be normally in our printed pieces, because we provide domestic brochures, international sell sheets, and I have no issue creating any of that into digital content for them, because it's very easy to switch from one to another with either just the content length and good editing, or just a quick design change.
Okay. Joe, I've got a question here I'm going to direct to you, because, Monica, you're in Chicago and Chris, you're in Vegas. David wants to know, how much does the destination affect the attendance to your show? He works for a suburban Chicago convention bureau and has been told that they are not marketable. Joe, your event is in Cleveland. So,
yeah.
And that is no disrespect to Cleveland.
No, I deal with the question all the time. We're headquartered in Cleveland, so we're very supportive of the city and trying to be part of bringing this thing back. But it has been a challenge. Now, what smaller markets can give you that Chicago and Vegas and New York and San Francisco can't is you can get more promotion and get more cooperation. And this is what I've found. I mean, it might not be true for all people, but we get things like, when you get off the plane in Cleveland, you have signage everywhere. You know that you're coming to Content Marketing World. We get all the taxi drivers to wear Content Marketing World buttons. We get all the people at the hotels to wear buttons for the event. We have gobos everywhere with the logo around the city. We got banners around the city. I can tell you, I can't get that in any other city. So we can create an environment in the city that's unlike any other city, and that's the benefit that you. Now, that said, we still got to get them to because it's not like you're going to go to Cleveland for vacation, most likely. So we've got to put on we got to play up the Rock Hall. We've got to play the fact that we got Kevin Spacey coming to the event. We got to do things like that, but then that gives us a lot more flexibility on site. And frankly, every place is marketable. You just have to find that niche and really play to it. Like the music scene is really big here, so we do a lot of things around rock and roll. We're having a rock and roll festival this year, so really playing into the persona of the city itself.
Gotcha. Okay, we have very little time left for this last question, but I want to get it in from Michelle Bruno. She's asking Chris and Monica, where is the bottleneck in the trade show industry with respect to leveraging content marketing more? Education about content marketing, resources to create the content. Chris, in 30 seconds or less?
I wasn't aware that there is a bottleneck within the industry, but I think education about content marketing is lacking, and I think perhaps it's fear of the unknown. Why more are not doing it, and then in terms of the resources to create the content, it's basically time. It's there's only two resources in business, as time and money, and this one comes down to time and some creativity, and I think most of all the courage to try something different. Okay, and Monica, do you
exactly the same thing? For us, it's resources and time to do it. It's prohibitive sometimes that there's just not more hours in the day.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, our time is up. If we missed your question, I'll shoot you an email to answer it, but I think we got everything. So I just thank you to everyone who is joining us online for the webinar, and a huge thank you to Joe, Chris, and Monica for coming on and sharing their experiences with us. This webinar will be available online, so check back on tsnn.com/TSNN-webinars or -webinars for the recording of this session. And a big thanks to our sponsors, MCCA and Advantage Boston and OnStream. Thank you all for joining us.